Night. Just let me know if you can hear me well. Um, Kemar Stuart here, your host on Alternate Views. I want to welcome you all to tonight's program. Let's do a quick sound check to ensure that the volume is fine and we'll be on the road and ready to go. So, I am your host this evening, October 3rd, 7:06 p.m. Yet another Thursday, Alternate Views. And I want to welcome all of the alternate viewers onto the program this evening. I hope you had a very good week. I look forward to chatting with you all this evening. So let me welcome the early Patriot supporters as we usually do. Wendy Ford Griffith was very early in, so we want to thank Wendy for tuning in. Patrick Designs, welcome Patrick. Saying good night, Kimar. I'm ready to listen and learn. So welcome Patrick. Happy to have you here. Patrick is saying good night to the guest speaker, Mr. Donville Inniss, a great man and Minister of Parliament. Donville will be in very soon. Uh, so I hope you put your questions in, Patrick, this evening uh, to Donville. So good night, Lemuel. Welcome. And welcome to all of the other alternate viewers this evening on the program. I hope you're having a good day so far. Um, Without further ado or delay, I'm going to bring in our loyal and resident co-host.
Hi, good
Get
night. I
him
don't know if
to.
you can hear me. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well, loud and clear. Um, then we're going to get our second resident co-host in very early out. So good night to you, Melissa.
And
Hi, good night, Kemar. Hi. Good night, Ramon.
Yes,
Hi, good night to the viewers.
yes. Welcome, welcome. Ramon, are you? Whoa, he is. Oh, welcome, Melissa. Thank you for being on Alternate Views. Yeah, another Thursday. Very sure the alternate viewers are very happy to see you back here on the program. Um,
Happy to be here.
yes, thank you. So we have Tyrone Green, Square Four is saying good night, Mr. Shore. Looking forward to what you all have to offer tonight. We have Fabian Yard coming in very early, Tamika Harper as well. So that is Ramon trying to get back in, so we're going to welcome him uh, in as soon as possible. Yeah, great. Um, yeah, he will give us his signal. Yeah, he's ready. Right. So let us get him back in.
hi, good night.
You
Testing. Good night. You guys can hear me?
loud and clear.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Good night to viewers. And good night to panelists. And to everybody.
Yes, good night,
Good night.
good night to you.
Good night. Good
Yes.
night. Yes.
Yeah. So as was advertised, Ramon, um, we're discussing international business in Barbados. We're discussing the state of the industry, and we're going to get a bit of an update in a conversation, right? It's not a cross examination, but on alternate views, we enjoy conversing and
Yes, that's
um,
correct.
exchanging views. So we gonna continue that on tonight. We have a very special guest on, Mr. Donville Inniss. As you know, Mr. Inniss would have been the former Minister of Commerce and International Business uh, in Barbados, and he has an extensive story to share with us tonight. Many people love Donville across Barbados, so he is no stranger to any of us on here. He's known regionally and internationally as well. So this promises to be a very good conversation. So let us shout out all of the alternate viewers from through the Caribbean. Let us shout out all of the alternate viewers internationally, uh, especially our crew from over in Ireland. We hope to have you on tonight. Good night to the Caribbean Progress Studies Institute. Thank you for locking on and endorsing the platform as well. So, without further delay, we're going to get our guest in right now. So, let us welcome him, co-host Mr. Donville Inniss, former Minister of Commerce and International Business in Barbados. So, welcome to Alternate Views, Mr. Donville Inniss. Very happy to have you on the program tonight. Welcome, sir. How are you doing?
Hi, well, Kemar and your fellow hosts and those listening and viewing in. I'm okay. I'm okay. Looking forward to an interesting conversation here tonight on a very interesting topic.
Yes, yes. So, welcome to you, sir. We usually start alternate views with a quote. So right. So for those persons who are not speaking, I'm gonna mute your mics if you don't mind. Um, yeah, right. So we usually start alternate views with a quote, and I would have written about you for a short bit in alternate views the book. I don't know if you would have known, but I would have mentioned your name in some aspects of the book, particularly in the intro. So I don't know if I could read that special part for you. Know that you're on the program, where I could have quoted your name. No, in alternative views, I would have said that we were speaking about the state of the Barbados economy, right? And I would have been addressing the elements of the unions and the trade unions and the fight that the trade unions were bringing against the government at the time. So I said on page 19 of Alternate Views, the book. So for those persons who know who usually follow, usually start the program always with a quote. So it's my honor now to read that leading the charge on wage increases were the Barbados Workers Union, headed by General Secretary Tony Moore, and the National Union of Public Workers head Akani McDowell. And the unions allegedly wanted a 23% wage increase across the board from the Shore administration and held fast to this demand. The NUPW General Council have voted to bring industrial action to force the Barbados government to negotiate salary increases for its members. Now, the former Minister of Finance was speaking during the estimates, but have provided greater detail as it relates to the offers between the government and the union. Uh, I went on to say here that former Minister of Commerce Donville Inniss accused Akani McDowell and Tony Moore of being in cahoots with the opposition to destabilize the ruling government and asserted that positions of ambassadorship or senatorship had been promised to them both by the opposition leader at the time, and his assertions held to be true. I went on further in alternate views to say that Barbados, as an small island developing state, has benefited significantly in terms of foreign direct investment post independence 1966 up until the global financial crisis in 2008, where the world experienced significant drawbacks in private capital. In more recent years, Barbados has been struggling to attract foreign direct investment as emerging economies across the globe with higher potential for economic growth and returns on investment had been giving Barbados some challenges. And the preferential exempt surplus agreement Barbados enjoyed with Canada, which allowed the country to repatriate dividends into Canada once taxed locally at Barbados' international business tax rate, has been extended to other countries, for example, St. Lucia, and this occurrence saw over $250 million yearly disappearing from the shores of Barbados. And foreign direct investment levels into Barbados since 2017 had been significantly low, right? And I would have asserted that the attraction of record levels of foreign direct investment into Barbados is pivotal in order to achieve a sustainable growth trajectory in the country's economic sectors, which have the potential for growth of new business and development. So that is a quote from Alternate Views. So we want to, get in some conversation about the quote, but we also want to ask you to introduce yourself to the audience, really.
But I think I am one that perhaps not very good at introducing myself. I think those who know me, and those who don't will perhaps judge me according to what others have said or what I may have here to say tonight. But I think that reflecting upon your quote and going back to the politics of the day when we had the battles with the union over their demands for wage increases, conceptually, what we were dealing with was a case where the state just could not afford the increase. And linking it with the points you made in your quote in your book, which, by the way, I have a copy here, is the fact that Barbados' economy continued then to be challenged, not just based on what we inherited in 2008, but the fact, as you pointed out, a few years after being in office, the Canadians changed their tax regime. We had a double taxation agreement in place in Canada, I think, since 1983, that made Barbados the favorite domicile for Canadian companies to be established here, where they could repatriate their dividends from exempt surplus and pay no taxes in Canada, which is being used in the context of Canadian enterprise. But that level of investment saw many major Canadian entities established in Barbados, creating jobs, earning foreign exchange, transferring technology. And then Canada decided that no, they needed to level the playing field, and the benefits that they were extending to Barbados, they extended to other domiciles. And as a result, we lost business. And I want to say up front, the international business sector in Barbados has been, over the years, the single largest contributor to corporation tax. It's also the single largest net foreign exchange earner for Barbados. So when you look at what the Canadians did with us, um, and then the other external exogenous factors that impacted upon our economy, we could not afford the wage increases that the unions were demanding. And I made a statement that some people thought was quite political, but hey, I was a politician. That I thought the unions were in bed with the opposition party. I mean, I didn't have a crystal ball, I can tell the future, but of course, it seems as though it has emerged that way. But I think that any conversation we're having about the international business sector within the Barbadian context, we must all understand or should agree as to what is the international business sector. What is international business? It really is the trade in goods and services outside of your domestic market. So whatever we sell externally um, uh, um, places us within the domain of a global arena, allows us therefore to be doing business outside of our shores. I think over the years, Barbados has really evolved and developed a very niche area in international business, particularly centered around services, not goods, as you, Kemar, and your other panelists know as researchers and analysts. We don't export a lot of physical goods, but the services sector, international business and financial services sector, is what has really been driving, particularly foreign exchange component of Barbados over the years. So I look forward to a healthy conversation around this issue.
Yes, well, thank you very much for your introduction. Melissa, any initial comments from you? You're muted.
Yeah, he mentioned double taxation and the relationship that we have with Canada. And I see that the new tax reform that we have come in agreement with the Pillar 1 and the Pillar 2 tax reforms, they have excluded China, companies from China and the US. Sorry, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but again some noise from I think that's probably Ramon in the background. So just
Okay.
gonna ask him to mute his mic quickly. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So as I was saying, he mentioned the double taxation and the relationship with companies from Canada, and we have now started the Pillar One and the Pillar Two tax reform in Barbados. But under the Pillar One and the Pillar Two, we do not include companies from China and the U.S. Um, so my question is, sorry, are you familiar with the new Pillar One and Pillar Two tax reform?
I have a bit of familiarity. Perhaps in my introduction, I should have said that I am not a tax expert.
Uh-huh.
I'm not an accountant. My background is in business, particularly international business. But when it comes to the very technical issue, I defer to the experts. But yes, Pillar 1, Pillar 2, I have a sense of familiarity with it. And perhaps for the benefit of the audience, perhaps Melissa, we can step back a little bit
Hmm.
and contextualize it. Because over the years, Barbados, as a small open economy, has been challenged by the efforts of the OECD and the EU, the US of A in particular, and the UK, if you take it out the OECD extent. And what has been the challenge that has affected us? They have seen these developed countries have felt that they have not been earning enough tax from their domestic companies that have gone internationally to jurisdictions like Barbados. We were offering a tax rate of 2.5%, for example, for IBCs, 0% for insurance companies. So in a quest to get those OECD-based companies to repatriate or to do more business or to generate more tax revenue to the to their countries, they have sought to apply pressure to jurisdictions like Barbados, small open economies that
Hmm.
were considered tax havens, even though we are called low tax jurisdiction. So it might have started way back in the 80s with the OECD and marching forward. Then we get forward to Pillar 1, Pillar 2 as a stand, which really stands from the Republican Party in the United States of America under President Donald Trump, former, perhaps future president, I don't know, who lowered the corporation tax in the US from 35 to 21%, and then march forward, along with the OECD and those guys who talked about this global minimum tax rate that they want to charge of 15%. But with Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 in particular, which speaks to the taxation arrangements across borders and taxing those companies that are for your countries originally, it is
Hmm.
interesting to note that despite all of the pressures applied to places like Barbados, and in spite of the Barbados government changing legislation to accommodate Pillar 1, Pillar 2, uh, China, India, and the US of A, three of the largest economies in the world, have not signed on to it.
Correct.
So it's pretty much a case of doing what I say and not what I do. And this has been a challenge that we in small open economies have faced for many years. So the Pillar 2 arrangement, and you're right, Melissa, is one where now we are marching towards a global minimum tax of 15%. And the Barbados government, I think last year, around the end of the year, introduced a 9% tax on companies. And then there's that march towards a 15% global tax for those who are earning more than 750 million euros. But the US of A has not signed on to that, nor has India, and certainly not China.
Not China.
Right. And that is not just an issue of reputation or hypocrisy. It has serious economic implications for a small island like Barbados. Because there's very little we can do in such instances.
So, in your opinion, you would say that this new structure is hurting us more than benefiting us?
Well, that is a good question, but not one that I can proffer an easy answer. In the sense that we have to, in Barbados today in 2024, asked ourselves, what is our international business sector? The international business sector today in Barbados is not as clearly defined as it was several years ago. Back then, we had a collection of tax system, tax regimes, double taxation, bilateral investment treaties, multilateral treaties we signed on to. We had legislation governing like international business companies, societies, restricted liabilities, and various corporate structures that you could point to and say this was our clearly defined international business sector. We knew up to 2018 when I left office that the international business sector was contributing no less than 64% of all corporation tax paid into the Barbados Revenue, well, was now the Barbados Revenue Authority. So it's a significant contributor. So you had a clearly defined sector that is a bit easy to manage. Now, in response to all of the changes that we've made, including responding to the OECD and the US and those countries, I don't know that we have a very clearly defined international business sector. A lot of the legislation like IBCs, SLs, those have been repealed. So I don't know that we have a very clearly defined sector.
Well, I Ramon, before you go, you said there's not a clearly defined sector. No, I observed that after 2018, we had one international business minister up until he would have resigned as an MP, and after that, we do not have an out and out or substantive minister responsible for international business, right?
Mhm.
I heard in one of the budgets that the prime minister of a policy where there where the OECD was challenging the international tax regime, and the government had to bring all companies into a domestic or turn all companies into a domestic company. So I was wondering if there was any correlation between those two activities.
Well, I can't tell you what was in the head of the Honorable Prime Minister Motley in shaping her cabinet. I mean, it is a rather large cabinet, so somewhere in there we may have missed someone who is defined as as Minister of International Business. But I think, to me, the international business sector has been so important to the national development of Barbados that we should have had a minister clearly defined and responsible for international business. Now, even if you repeal a lot of the legislation in response to what the OECD and those have been doing, even if, as the Prime Minister did in December of 2018, converge international tax to domestic tax down to 5.5%, somewhere in the back of your mind, even if you look at statistics collected by central bank and other entities, there still must have been a very important international business sector that therefore may have merited specific ministerial attention. I think today now it's called the Minister of Business, and that may be the government's response to emphasize the fact they have converged domestic and international business. But I'm afraid that the international business sector is not getting the level of attention that it merits. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about foreign companies coming into Barbados, but we have to have a paradigm shift where we start thinking and acting about domestic companies, Barbadian owned entities that are actually exporting and doing business outside of Barbados. And that is part of our international business sector too. But I leave it to it's prime ministers choose who they want in their cabinet and assign their portfolios. So maybe tomorrow the prime minister may change their mind. I don't know.
Well,
Sorry,
very
Melissa.
interesting. Yeah, Ramon, over to you.
Yeah, just before we go on, I'm just making sure that everyone can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Beautiful. Good. Okay, you mentioned DTAs, double taxation agreements. You also mentioned bilateral investment treaties. Now, currently, there is 31 DTAs in place and 11 bilateral investment treaties. You can remember in your tenure, in your time, What were the numbers?
I honestly cannot remember.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I thank you for telling me what the numbers are today, but I
Yes.
don't
Thank you.
know whether they're up or down. What I would say though, that as we transition over the last decade or so, there is less emphasis on bilateral arrangements, bilateral treaties, and more from multinational treaties. So, example, Barbados is a sign on to the OECD-led arrangement that spoke to the global minimum tax of 15%. And in that case, you no longer need those tax treaties because it's now more of a level playing field. The investment treaties are one that really protect your investments across the borders. So, for example, we may have one with Venezuela that speaks to the protection of Barbadian-owned companies investing in Venezuela. And in the event that some calamity happens, you have some way of mediating and resolving those issues. But I don't know that we are still heavily reliant on those bilateral or double taxation treaties as we used to have, given the level of the playing field by external forces.
Okay. Just obviously for the sake of the viewers, bilateral investment treaties are international agreements that establish terms and conditions for private investment by nationals and companies of one country in another. Right?
Mhm.
They ensure that investors receive national or most favored nation treatment. They protect investors against performance requirements, restrictions on transfer, and arbitrary expropriation. Right? And that's the bilateral investment. In regards to the double taxation agreement, um, those are basically measures in place uh, in terms of the tax. You could ease of completing taxes, et cetera, for international businesses.
Okay.
All right. All right. Thanks, Ramon.
Yes.
Sorry, you want to respond, Donville, or you?
No, no, I'm happy with the explanation. Just in terms of the double taxation, is really for the avoidance of double tax, meaning that tax you pay in one jurisdiction, based on the detail you have for the corresponding jurisdiction, you are given a credit or you're not taxed doubly in that other jurisdiction.
And also helps to avoid this tax evasion as well too.
Well, in theory,
Yeah.
yes.
In theory. Theory.
Right. Speaking of which, Donville, I always wanted somebody who has the understanding to explain this to me. No, um, as you say, you're not a tax expert or anything, but Barbados rolled out something called an Amazon tax, right?
Mhm.
Um, so this Amazon tax is intended to, like, every time you swipe your credit card or you buy something, that you will pay VAT on the transactions. Now, this VAT and this online transaction tax, which was the same 17.5% as the local tax, many Barbadians are like sought to buy things from the internet because it was somewhat cheaper and you would get somewhat a bargain or a deal, right? And you could import things. Some people built many a small business off of the fact that you could order online and it would be somewhat cheaper. Now, when you added the tax, obviously that increased the overall tax burden on people who did online shopping. Now, the structure of the Amazon tax, which had a lot of delays in its implementation, obviously because the structure of it was so unique that it it took a while to put it in. Now, when you swipe the card, Amazon becomes a tax collector for the government of Barbados, right? So Amazon collects the tax, and then Amazon is supposed to register with the Barbados Revenue Authority and have a Tamis number and file taxes through this Thomas number to be able to get VAT returns and the other structured processes like everybody else locally. Now, I always wanted to know if those type of taxation arrangements are legal, and if they're legal, uh, it's certainly unique, something like I've never seen before. And I just want to know if you have any experience encountering taxation like the Amazon tax.
Well, no, it's the same thing as if you go into a Bays or Sheraton Center or Courts or somewhere and buy a good, you have to pay 17.5% tax. People raise concern about the fact that Amazon is based in the US or wherever it is and is international, and we should not pay a tax. And as much as I don't like to have to pay the 17.5% tax on goods that buy on Amazon, to be fair, if we're going to pay it in Broad Street or Sheraton or elsewhere, why not pay it with them? You're buying a good. Um, so and yes, there are, Barbados is not unique in that case. If you live in California in the US of A, you buy something online, you're subject to a California tax, even if the goods originate in another state, is being delivered to California or wherever your credit card may list your address as. So it's not unusual. I think the bigger issue for us in
But
Barbados is that
customs duties and import duties will account to being taxed twice, basically.
I don't know, but as I say, I'm not a tax person accountant, but I don't know that you're taxed twice. You buy a gun on Amazon for 100 US, you are subject to 17.5% VAT in Barbados. Now, the duties is a different matter. If the goods are shipped to Barbados via Amazon, then at the point of entry, Customs and Excise Department will affect the tax rate due on it. Just as if you buy something on Amazon and you live in the UK, you may be subject to British tax. And Amazon, those international online suppliers, are compelled to know what is the tax rate and the duty rate for the items in the country to which the goods are going. But there's another side to it, which is the reality we have to face. I want to bring international business back to domestic operation. The truth of the matter is that the government of Barbados needs every cent it can collect to provide the goods and services. The conversation perhaps can be about, are you getting value for the monies you're spending in taxes? Is there another way in which you can be more efficient and less costly as a jurisdiction? What can be done to drive down the cost of basis in Barbados? What can be done to ensure that Barbadians feel a greater level of comfort based on what they're spending, whether it's paying VAT through Amazon or buying goods in the store in town?
Fair enough. Melissa, you want to make a comment here? Muted.
You're muted, Vanessa. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. With the Amazon tax, I think it is unnecessary too, because like you said, Kimar, when you order from Amazon and the goods get here, your tax, like you said, with VAT and then custom duties and I think it's something else that you're taxed on as well. So I think it's like three
Excise
taxes.
tax.
Yeah.
Excise tax.
So is excessive to me.
Well, fair enough. But I think many Barbadians find a way around paying these taxes, and that's where government has to stay ahead of the curve. Because the truth of the matter is that when that tax was introduced, I'm sure there are many smart Barbadians who found ways to get their friends in the US or wherever to buy the goods, have them sent to them, and put them in a suitcase and bring home. And I'm not telling people how to avoid the VAT and the taxes. But that's why when tax rates ought to be set at such a level that you try to not encourage tax evasion. It should be low enough that everybody can feel comfortable paying the taxes. But when it's high, people find a way to beat the system. And that is the same thing international business companies do in principle. They go to jurisdictions where they feel they can pay the lower level of tax and get away with whatever they want to.
Well, here's a question from Stephen. Like, where does this Amazon tax go? No, I would like to know as well because the same way how we have reporting for VAT and VAT collection, um, I'm assuming that it's probably recorded in the overall VAT total because the Amazon tax is really and truly a value-added tax. It's a VAT tax, right?
Hmm.
So true, right? So true, the company Amazon registering with the Thomas number true, bruh, right? It will be collected, but it will be collected under the auspices of VAT collection. So I'm not sure if the government would have separated to say, well, this amount of value-added tax would make, or the Amazon tax value-added tax would make XYZ, and other VAT collections would make XYZ. I'm not sure if the reporting skills of government are that extensive as yet. I could be wrong, but I'm not sure it's there as yet. So this is probably where it could be going, Stephen Knight. But I would like to know too, the same way how we have uh, a measured amount for the tax on foreign transactions. Um, we know how much that makes at the bank, right? So the central bank reports on that. So I would love a set aside section that tells us, well, the Amazon tax makes XYZ per year, or whatever, so we can get a gauge of its performance. Uh, over to you, Ramon.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is we're talking international business, right? But I'm just thinking in terms of all of these taxes, triple tax and quadruple tax and all types of taxes, right? I'm asking the question whether it is a ploy to protect the infant industries, right, or to balance out obviously the protection of the infant industries and also wanting that direct investment from the outside. So that's my question.
Sorry, repeat it for me again. One of the if the tax system or national business is being used to protect domestic or foreign companies.
That the domestic companies, all of these taxes and so forth, how high obviously the taxes are and the amount of taxes. Is it supposed to be some type of balance between uh, obviously making sure that the domestic industries do well and also make sure that you get um, some type of investment from outside as well to just to balance it out. These are motor tests because you want some type of deterrent from people buying or people doing international business, and also you want the domestic industries to strive as well too. So that's my question.
And a good question. Now, when we talked earlier about corporation tax, for example, that is your tax on your net income. So after all your expenditure and whatever, and a lower corporation tax allow the investors or the companies to have that amount of excess monies to invest in research, development, expansion, whatever. But that comes after the fact. The VAT, duties, and excise tax, all those other taxes, those go into the operation of the business, and those tax rates are what can affect the ability of a business to survive. Because if VAT and custom duties and whatnot are high, it means that the consumer at the end of the day is buying a good at a relatively high price. So the ability to purchase goods, and when I say goods, I don't mean just biscuit and berlin and whatever, but your electricity bill, for example, your water bill, NPC bill, those also attract a level of taxation. And if those are high, it's going to affect the ability of a business to be viable and to be competitive. I don't think that in our context in Barbados, the taxes that we charge as duties and excise and whatnot are designed to relate to the international competitive nature of Barbados, but more or less to be focused on generating revenue for the government. Revenue that is then used to pay for healthcare, education, roads, whatever. I hope that settles in your mind a bit the question.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you very Much grace for the exchange. Let us go to the comments to acknowledge some of the persons who would have signed in who are saying good night. Um, we have Tyrone Green again. We have Square 4. We have Tim Ward who's saying good night, everyone from Canada. So welcome, Tim. Welcome, Hasbro. Welcome to Emanan. Um, Arrow Calendar. Lady Vaughn. Eileen Toe. Lawrence St. Pierre. Chudrop Waldron. Joyanne Fifth. Uh, Ronald Roach. Patrick Design the same. Believe this Amazon tax is a scam, Kimar. Amazon taxes you want it, and then you have to pay for shipping and delivery. Somebody is saying it's in that gray area. These countries get away with murder. Well, it's meant to say companies. Sorry. RJ was saying that Mr. Ennis not explaining that correctly. Kimar hasn't. Oh, well, could you explain what you mean by that, RJ? Rhonda Paris is saying good night. Adrian Bascom is saying good night to you, brother Ennis. Patrick Designs are saying so much of our taxpayer money we don't know where it is or where it's getting used for. Um, YouTube users is saying we have info industries in those areas. Shipping goods, our companies produce items because we ain't producing much. Talmayero is saying good night to the panel. Simon Clark is saying good night. And Camila Lewis. No, my next question here is out of the entire international business sector, could you identify which is most lucrative for us in terms of industry that we could capture as a new industry? Because remember, tourism is not as it was before, right? And we are one-legged economy basically. So are there any industries within your vision that you could see within the next 10, 15, 20-year period being able to give us some economic power and some legs to stand on in terms of earning foreign exchange?
Yes, Kumar, thank you. And there's a two-pronged answer to that. We can look at it from businesses coming from outside the Barbados into Barbados. And where is the future for that? It continues to be in the information technology sector, as far as I'm concerned, which is developing and diversing every day. And I see the world as this platform. Barbados needs to carve out some niche in those areas that we can then attract more of those companies to Barbados to be domiciled. The insurance industry continues to be an attractive one for Barbados based on our treaties as well as a relatively decent tax rate and the competency of those professionals we have here. But I think young Barbadians need to ask themselves, what does the future hold for them? Everybody and everything can't be accommodated in this 166 square miles. And as I move around, I'm meeting more and more young people who are very frustrated with Barbados today. And this is not a partisan issue per se. To me, it's just a fact. Where are the opportunities in the cultural industries, for example? We have skills here that we can hone and develop, not just in the performing arts, those you see on the front stage, but those who also work behind in the music industry, in the videography and whatnot, where they can see the world as their oyster. In the technology side, artificial intelligence is on the cutting edge of where we're going now. We don't need to wait for people to come into Barbados. Where is the next Rihanna Fenty of each industry? Of the IT industry, the music industry, the arts and craft industry, whatever. Education is another area that whilst we are flogging today the system and the violence we have in our school system. Generally speaking, overarching, we have a good education system, and we should be asking ourselves to what extent can we export that or share more of that with the world to earn foreign exchange and create jobs in Barbados. The health sector is another critical one. Yes, our healthcare sector is not one that all of us can be satisfied about, but it doesn't stop us from looking at niche area where we have a cadre of professionals who are providing a service to international clients. And I see an emerging number of private healthcare facilities. I hope that that's the direction they're looking at. So I think that those are just some of the areas that we can immediately zone in on. So it can't be just about who is coming to Barbados to invest, but how can we get more young people in particular to be out there moving forward. And I see somebody just raise a point there that Barbados cannot tax its way out of this. And this is accepted. I think for too long, we've been using the weapon of taxation to try to pull ourselves up. But no, we need more domestic investment. We need to be earning our way in life a lot more than we're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ramon. I know that's your area. So could you take that one first?
Yes, for sure. I mean, so many young people I have conversations with, right? They come out of, and he mentioned um, technology. You know, I know there's one or two programs where you have the cybersecurity and so forth, but I actually, you know, I have a couple of conversations with my little nieces and my little nephew. They're very techy. You know, they're very techy. They can take up a particular device and start to just, you know, maneuver with it. So I'm surprised, disappointed, not really surprised, but disappointed that we're not capturing more of these young people, especially the ones who are coming out of the different institutions and so forth, right? Especially with you mentioning that the technology sector, the IT sector, is the one that is booming, right? So I'm a little disappointed where that is concerned. And I think I'm hoping that as time goes on, that this becomes much better in regards to how we recruit the younger people. That's my piece where that is concerned.
But
Yeah.
may I throw a question back to you, Ramon? Because when we
Yes,
talk about IT, it's so broad based. Don't you think we've reached the stage now where, yes, there's a fundamental course or level of training in IT for all young Barbadians, but then we have to have niche area and perhaps specialist schools or facilities that zero in on an aspect or two of IT that we can see ourselves then playing a more meaningful role in the world. For example, if you have smart Barbadians who are able to develop an app that is then able to sell on the Play Store or whatever that can revolutionize the way we do business or certain transactions, that is how we make money in a place like Barbados.
yes, of course.
Um,
Mhm. And I said we are very focused again. Maths, English, accounts, and bar. Nothing is wrong with those topics, those subjects. There are people overseas. They play video games for a living. They make lots of money. You know, these type of things. I know cybersecurity now. It's a big thing, right? It's a big topic in Barbados. I totally agree with you.
I hope you're
Donville.
not saying that because of the recent hack of the BRA
Well,
database. I
it's
mean, that should
becoming a
that it should not have taken that to make us realize
yeah.
of the importance of cybersecurity as a niche, but more importantly, the importance of protecting our data. But you go ahead.
There was a hack before as well too. You know, the another bank institution. You know, so and also a lot of people work at home. They're and we still have this in office type of mentality. You know, there are people working at home, more remote jobs. So those are the issues and the challenges we face. You know, we got to continue to move forward, especially in this technological right? But we're very ultra focused on the maths and the English, which is, as I said, it's fine, it's fantastic. But we have to branch off in these other areas in a serious way. You know,
If I may add another point here, and this perhaps is very personal dear to me, the agriculture sector. We are still scoffing at that in Barbados too much. I have a son who is very much into farming and agriculture on the whole. And when I watch him work, I see the potential. And I say, why is it that we're not doing more in agriculture? Why are we not more focused on protecting ourselves. If we take, for example, linking it back to international business, the current port strike in the eastern seaboard of the US of A, if it prolongs for another couple of days, will have serious implications upon the cost of food in Barbados or importation. Even if Barbadians start to panic, we're going to face reality that says we should have been producing more of what we consume. And we are not having a serious conversation about that. We are not investing in the right areas in agriculture and Barbados. We're not linking agriculture and technology together, for example. We're not really focused on processing. These are some of the areas that we have to get serious about in Barbados.
Now,
Um,
on a late, sorry, on
wait,
a
wait,
later,
well,
sorry, go ahead.
well,
Sorry.
like I want to get Melissa and then come back to you. So hold your point. Don't let it go.
Yeah, I agree about the agriculture, especially in these times where war seems to be, blooming in the atmosphere. Like when war starts, nobody's going to be sending food to us. So we need to be producing enough food that we can fully feed ourselves. I agree with that. Ramon mentioned earlier about video games, and the video game industry is actually blooming. Yeah, there are actually competitions where you can make a million US in the video game industry, and I find that very interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Back to you, Ramon. You could.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a chat there, and a guy made a point that the way we can get Barbadians involved in agriculture is if they had wingding seeds, and he made not he, he made that comment, right? But it really stuck with me, right? It really stuck with me. But we gotta get more serious with agriculture, food security, with war being imminent as well, knocking on wood, and knocking on wall, and knocking on every type of material, right? And I hope that it doesn't come to that. But we can have some serious challenges. And very good point. We can have some real serious challenges. And you're right. Nobody can be sending food to us like that. So we got to seriously think about it. So I
Yeah,
totally agree. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. Well, I think here that when it comes to agriculture, that a lot of our food production and consumption is very much dependent on United States foreign policy, right? Um, I observed in economies like St. Lucia, the economies that produce bananas, right? One stroke of a pen in a much larger economy could crash your domestic economy.
Mhm.
And you have agencies across the world, the Europeans and other agencies who are invested in the Caribbean, and they tend to try to regulate either by upfront coercion or behind the back coercion, uh, and are quite invested in some countries not becoming totally dependent on themselves, totally self-sufficient, right? So, in one sense, I understand the need for agriculture, and in the other sense, I understand the geopolitics of being a part of the World Trade Organization. Uh, then I think there was the agreements, like the European Partnership Agreement, and where like countries agreed to have to harmonize certain tax rates and import subsidies and remove certain protectionist measures that help to build up nationalist economies. So the more and more globalization occurring, realistically, hampers the opportunities to have the solutions that you guys just put forward,
Mhm.
right? So then what do you do?
Um, you forgive me if my camera is a little bit messed at the point in time. But
Yeah.
are you begging the question whether globalization has helped us or hindered us? Um, is it Has it failed? The reality about it is that within the international context, we can't turn it back now. You're going to have pockets of isolation where some countries are going to be very insular looking. But I don't think you can link, for example, the U.S. Agricultural policy with their um, um, efforts in globalization. They have said that the United States of America should try as far as possible to feed itself. It has not entirely worked because I tell you, the U.S. is importing a lot of food items from Mexico and other parts of the world. They can't feed themselves yet, but they're marching towards that. We in Barbados need to ask ourselves, what more can we do? Well, I see conversations today in 2024 about Barbados is importing some milk or milk from Ghana. The poultry industry is complaining more and more. The fishing industry, which is being hit with Hurricane Barrel, we still have a challenge there in terms of imports, even prior to that and now, and certainly foreseeable future. But what more can we do? I don't think we're having that kind of a level serious conversation on these matters.
Agreed. Anyone wants to jump in here?
So I just want to ask a question. What has happened to our rum industry? We were once pioneers. We were once champions. Where rum is concerned, with the dwindling of the sugarcane industry, there was some correlation between the dwindling of that and us not being champions of obviously the rum industry. The rum industry. You see, that's the question I'm asking. You know,
You
Yeah.
taking that,
Well,
Kimar?
yeah, well, from the bits that I know, um, a lot of the input of molasses into the rum is not being locally sourced. So Barbados is at risk of losing its 100% locally produced rum. For some rums, not all, of course, right? And according to international standards, the way we are making it, it can no longer be classified local. So you are right, there are some threats that are existing as it relates to expanding into new markets. I have not heard much discussion really. The last massive discussion I heard about the alcohol industry was the sale of, I think it was banks or one sort of Ambev, or I believe, and then there was a changeover. Oh no, there were some French investors who came here to invest in. I think it was Montgay here, or I believe. Um, but there has not been much or broad discussion as it relates to the alcohol industry at large. Yeah, and that's about the bits that I know about about it.
no problem. Because I can tell you, I know people who come from abroad. They go to a bar, all brands of other alcohol, staring them right in the face. And you know what they do? They point to Mount Gay. No, this is what we want. This is what we want. This is all they want. I want the other fancy brands. This is what we want. Right. So it is very unfortunate that we weren't able to continue to be champions and pioneers of our you know.
Well, that perhaps is a reality you have to face that Barbados could not produce the amount of sugar cane and then, of course, molasses and the raw material needed to produce rum. But what we did is that we produced a good quality rum, which we were able to market internationally. So over the years, Barbados has built up um, um, a reputation as being a top class rum producer, a producer of top quality rum. So one would say, well, should it make a lot of difference if we don't grow the sugar cane and the quantities we want? Because we have the brand, which comes back then to the opportunities that we need to explore in Barbados, which relates to intellectual property. In the sugar industry, I don't know what's happening now, sorry, the rum industry, for years, certainly when I was minister, we were fighting with the support of the World Intellectual Property Office and others for what we call geographical indicator, so that Barbados can be listed, for want of a better term, as the producer of top quality rum in the world. I don't know where we're at with that GI marking, but that certainly would have allowed us to have even a greater reputation on the world stage for rum. Now, in recent times, and I think going back to international business, you had the government recently and certainly under the Pillar 2 of the global minimum tax on areas to carve out, allow for certain industries to get concessions. Instead of paying 9% or 15% tax, you can get up to 50% rebate if you invest in certain industries, including the rum industry, distillery, and refinery, which tells me the opportunities are there. Now, when politicians get into parliament and speak glowingly, albeit to each other, on these things and these proposed and tax changes, there seems to be a disconnect that allows us to translate that into tangible activities on the ground. Where are young people investing in these areas? Do they have the resources to do it? I'm not talking about the rum industry per se, but generally speaking, I think there's still too much of a disconnect, or we have an implementation deficit disorder because people are not diversifying this economy as we should.
Melissa, you want to say something here? You're muted.
I I'm not really there's not really much to say about the rum industry. I think that with the rum industry we do a lot of exporting. Um and Ramon, you were mentioning when tourists come here, they want to try our rum. But I think that's just like if you go to Mexico, you will want to try tequila. So it's just a tourist trying what's available to them. But I think the rum industry is doing well overseas. If you go to UK, you will see our rum on the shelves in UK.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
I mean,
true.
yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead, Ramon. Go ahead.
But it more of a this specifically. They just don't want to trade it wrong. They specifically ask for our rum, right? So I just want to know. I said I don't think that Donville mentioned it, right? In terms of intellectual property and so forth. I think he was
Mhm.
mentioning that. Uh,
The IP, yeah.
Pardon me.
Intellectual property, yeah.
That's
IP.
correct, right? Now you got to ask the question if that fight has continued, right? I know you're if that fight has continued to have a proper branding and us be known as the country, for that particular, right? You got to ask that question.
Yeah,
I'm not too sure.
that fight continues. It continues, and certainly back in my day, the bigger challenge we got was actually for the United States of America, and certainly rum producers out of Puerto Rico and the USVI in that respect. But there's a broader issue, which is are we recognizing the opportunities in Barbados for us to identify what is uniquely Barbadian that we can register IP, copyright, whatever. What is it that our young artisans can do to ensure that their works are protected based on World Intellectual Property Office rights, copyrights, um, even in terms of software development and those things, IP. Now, let me say that in the international business sector in Barbados, we have earned over the years hundreds of millions of dollars from entities that had their activity, that had their own intellectual property, whether it be the software app that developed or whatever. And it's their IP in the broadest context. And they earn significant revenue. Take, for example, Microsoft. The amount of monies that Microsoft earned per year is not just because of coding and things, software they develop, but what they've developed over the years that is now being sold all around the world, and they're getting a few cents based on their right of ownership. I think that we in Barbados, we need to really not just think outside of the box, but sometimes act outside of the box. We're still in this island trying to do too many things the same way we've been doing it for decades and expect to have a different and more positive outcome. And that is why, programs like these must be encouraged, where you can hear the views not of older people like myself alone, but younger people. What kind of Barbados do they want? What do they see as their international business sector? What more can they be doing to go on the international stage? Those are the kind of conversations we must have and really break them down to nuts and bolts transaction activities.
Yeah, now you said that I remember that the Chelsea show, which is the flower show, has put Barbados on the world stage, and who would just believe that gardening flowers would be such a lucrative venture for a country? Now, as of late, I have not heard much about Barbados and Chelsea, but I know Barbados top Chelsea almost every year for many years on the stretch,
Hmm.
right? We saw marketing on CBC, and it was a known fact in the newspapers, and it gave Barbados a lot of international attention. So I always wondered what happened to the Chelsea Flower Showcase. I wondered what happened to beautiful locations like Arcade World and those other international flower gardens in Barbados that would have the exchange, trade, and information. Much like how you have the rally events where you have that cross-border exchange to trade. You have polo on the polo fields. You have that cross-border exchange to trade in terms of sport. And other niche sports like equestrian, horse riding, and other niche, unique areas that are not your everyday area. But if you can get some young people into them and bring some life back into them, much like the Super Bowl at Bathsheba being the thing. So along those
You
lines,
see,
what you
Kimar,
sorry, go ahead.
I hear you, but my challenge here is that those activities, whether it's the Chelsea Flower Show, polo, equestrian, horseback riding, garrisons, whatever, golfing, those are activities that help to create in the minds of the international person that Barbados has a wide variety of things to offer them, that they can have a very diverse quality of life or diverse range of activities and a high quality of life in a small jurisdiction. But that is when you get here, you want to enjoy that. Um, I don't know that those activities are by themselves alone translating into us earning foreign exchange, generating jobs in a meaningful way, and whatnot. I guess that the we can be well known around the world, let's say through Rihanna for songs. We can be well known for producing great flowers to be shown in the Chelsea market. We have top horseback riders, like husbands and others, top trainers like Sir Michael Stout and whatever. But what we want is to wrap that all around us and say these are the things that make us unique as a domicile. Those are things that are unique to Barbados. And then how can we package that and take that further afield? Now, you take, for example, we know the government is now investing heavily in Africa. And I don't knock it. But what's the end game here? We have set up embassies in Africa. We are spending a lot of money with delegations going to Africa and some coming over here and whatnot. But what exactly are we offering our brothers and sisters in the African continent to Barbados? Now, you see, recently there's been the pharmaceutical industry. And let me say that certainly when I was there as Minister of Health many years ago, we were spending at least $25 million per year on the drug service alone, which means that we were spending perhaps $40 million a year buying pharmaceuticals. So I commend any self arrangement that allows us to develop pharmaceuticals and sell them. But where are biochemists? Where are young people who are involved in research and development in this industry? So to tell me that we're going to set up something with Rwanda, I want to know there's a lot more meat on the bone, that we're actually developing a cadre of young people in Barbados, in the community college, in the University, West Indies, whatever, that have the ability to help us based on the epidemiological profile of Barbados, the Caribbean, and Africa, that we can develop drugs across to meet the demands and in a tangible way that we earn money. But I think too much of our conversations on these matters are at a very superficial level. We are not growing up our sleeves and getting down to asking ourselves, how can we actually generate jobs in a sustainable manner? How can we earn foreign exchange? Over the last couple of years, Barbados has had to, but you can tell me, Kimar, that's more up to your line of research. But we owe a lot of money abroad. Are we producing enough in Barbados to meet our foreign exchange demands, to meet our foreign payments as they become due? Because we must not be a society that would tax our way out of this. We can't keep borrowing from town to pay Mary, etc. We have to have not just talk, we have to have real tangible things that will save foreign exchange and earn foreign exchange in Barbados. The international business sector, I firmly believe, is a sector that costs us little but can earn a lot more. But I don't know we're paying the level of attention to it today as we can, you know. But I wait to hear from you.
Well, um, interesting, interesting. Ramon, Melissa, any of you guys care to?
Yeah, I think Melissa has some technical difficulties there. I believe so. I can't hear you, Kimar.
Yeah, you want to respond to Donville's comment?
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I think that generally speaking, the younger people, they're risk averse, right? They see the challenges of doing business locally, even so, even to branch out outside of that, right? There's a general fear, right? And I mean, it's a fear that you must overcome. But it's also a situation where we must make it easier to do business in Barbados. And once that is done, then that fear is then relieved then to step outside of Barbados. But if there's a fear locally to do business, even in Barbados, to branch out, then is a mountain to climb, a further mountain to
But
climb.
Raman, I hear you, and I don't have the empirical evidence. But anecdotally, I would say that young Barbadians are not as risk averse as my generation was. I actually think younger Barbadians today are more willing to take a chance in business. Now, how do we create more opportunities for them? Yes, we have a challenge with doing business in Barbados, the challenge of incorporating a company, registering business, interacting with government departments. To tell the truth, is sometimes it's like molasses running up, trying to move up Mount Everest in the dead of winter. It's very slow and can be very frustrating. But and I think that those are some there's some low hanging fruit that we can pick. We need to do more online transaction with company formation in Barbados, for example. Today I can sit in my study at home and incorporate a company in the US of A, perhaps in 24 hours, and have the documents for that's the meeting next day or whatever. I'm told that in Barbados, you're lucky if you can get it done under 21 days. Now people will say, well, when I was minister, it would take longer. I said, well, you're not living in the past, you're looking forward. And I think that we need to deploy more technology across the board to facilitate business creation and business development in Barbados. Our lending institutions, for example, need to be more flexible and accommodating. We really don't have development banks in Barbados anymore. It's much easier to go to a commercial bank in Bridgetown and borrow money to buy a car for $60,000 than it is to get $6,000 to buy ground cover to put on a half-acre land to grow vegetables that can feed the family and feed the country. And therefore, the state is forced to pick up more and more of the slack. but there are limits to what they can do when they have to get things right in the hospital and to get things right in the roads and to hire policemen to check the tint on your car and these kind of things. The reality about it is that we have to do much better at business facilitation and business development in Barbados than we're currently doing. But I think young people are showing that potential. They're frustrated, but I think they want to do more than we're currently allowing them to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me
Donville, I want to ask you. Sorry, Ramon. Right. I just want to ask Donville a question. Well, he said that we need to find a way to create better business facilitation. Now, in this year's budget, I heard the Prime Minister saying that they were going to create a new state-owned entity called Business Barbados to be able to streamline and improve business processes and to basically do the things that you would have suggested. Do you see that entity has been successful in its endeavors? And they made a comment about uh, development. I'm giving your people the chance for development. Um,
Mhm.
and that we were borrowing, and I just wanted to ask your opinion. Right? At the rate that Barbados is borrowing for its development, what impacts do you foresee on the future business climate of Barbados, and to be able to foster and create new businesses for to create further levels of employment, given the fact that we're under an IMF program?
Thank you. In respect to the first question about the Business Barbados entity, I believe you're referring to efforts to restructure the Corporate Affairs and Intellectual Property Office to move it from being a department of central government and a ministry to becoming more or less like a private sector entity. Um, I wish the authority well. I know the unions are currently talking about labor issues they're in and whatnot. But to me, the bigger issue is what really makes us think that moving corporate affairs from central government to a private control entity will make the functions of that department any more speedy and effective than it currently is. And I ask that because the Corporate Affairs Intellectual Property Office still has a significant regulatory role to provide. It's not just about filling out forms and getting on the back the next day or whatever. Matter of fact, we should be able to do that before restructuring the entity and make it a private sector entity. Um, so I wish them well, but I'm not yet convinced that that is going to be the panacea. That's going to save us per se. But we see what happens in the issue of borrowing for development works. The prime minister as minister of finance over time would have pointed out why they felt the need to borrow, particularly borrow on the international arena. We are definitely deep in the hands of the International Monetary Fund and other international lending institutions, and not just the IMF and the World Bank, but also those other entities that we don't hear a lot about, but do influence policy in Barbados. That is a significant challenge that is going to reorient or change the way we operate in this society. Now, the government has been borrowing. I will have to ask you, the members of the panel, because I have not been around for quite a while in recent years. Are you satisfied that the borrowings is going towards meaningful developmental projects, or are we borrowing to settle fiscal matters such as paying down debt, restructuring debt, creating new entities? Are we borrowing to create new industries to let's say reduce our dependency on tourism? Um, I throw that question back at you there. What we all can agree on is that the level of foreign borrowings is relatively high. Um, You can tell me as someone who does research and analysis, where is the money going? Are we creating new enterprise? Are we driving private sector development? I'll tell you what, and this is my concern about the private sector in Barbados. The private sector in Barbados needs to be privatized. It is too dependent still on government. I repeat that again. The private sector in Barbados needs to be privatized. There is not that great level of entrepreneurship that abounds in the bosom and the blood veins of the private sector in Barbados. And we need to find a way, as we borrow more, as we invest more, that we also get the private sector to become true entrepreneurs and not dependent on legislation from Parliament and British, certain policies or handouts from the state to drive our economy. If we don't get that, we're going to be forever borrowing and forever spiraling ourselves deeper and deeper into debt. I stop there for now.
Yeah. Um, Melissa.
Yeah, he's emphasizing that he needs the private sector to become more private, but it seems like if the road that the government is taking is that they're getting more intertwined with the private sector, and you see this with the private public partnerships. Look at the Hope project, you look at Comey. So instead of coming apart, they're getting even closer together. And with these private public partnerships, majority of the times the revenue goes to the companies, but who's really repaying the loans is the taxpayers repaying the loans. So what's the arrangement there?
But the two entities you pointed out to Melissa, um, there are really government departments. I mean, my knowledge of the Hope Project and Kensington Oval Management Inc., however you cut it and slice it and dice it, those are entities created perhaps under the Corporate Affairs and Intellectual Property Office regime, but with the principal shareholder is the government of Barbados. Now, I don't consider that in the conversation about private sector entities in Barbados. Those entities
I think Donville's stuck, or that's me.
I'm back here now. Sorry, I lost the connection there just now.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was me. But go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was making the point that if you look at housing, for example, what true private public sector partnership we have in housing development in Barbados today? I don't know. Creating an entity and then
He gone again. Yeah, yeah. You want to say something in the meantime, Ramon? Time he comes
sorry, I'm,
back
I'm
on.
back here now.
Yeah, he's back. He's
Um,
back.
I had to shift to another part of the house. Maybe I can blame Flo. I don't know. But the
Yeah.
point remains is that we have to have uh, um, um, genuine private sector entities in Barbados that are taking risks. Private companies that are saying we are going to go and raise a couple $1 million and provide housing for Barbadians. Now, through enlightened government policies, we may be able to get the land at a reduced cost, some other fiscal incentives that allow those housing to be available to the average Barbadian at the right price. But taking monies and putting into Hope or whatever, I don't consider those as real private public sector partnership. Um, I would like to see more private sector investment in Barbados, but that may very well be a reflection of the level of confidence that the private sector has in the state. But we need to have a private sector in Barbados that is not as lazy as it currently is. I pause
Well,
there.
well, that's interesting you would say that because the private sector in any economy are supposed to be the risk takers. But here you have it in small developing economies, and not just Barbados. This is a Caribbean-wide thing. When I was at UWA, I had a lecturer who was from one of the CARICOM islands, and she said that the problem is the same thing, and that in trying to lead developments to these parts of the world, that the private sector then ends up begging government for everything: subsidy here, cutback here, tax write off here, uh, you know, import duties written off. So it does not really lend to overall development, but it really and truly lends to a subsidy for the private sector, who then usually end up eating majority of the profit. Now,
Hmm.
in Barbados, we had some policies rolled out that were supposed to spur economic activity. So we had a debt restructuring, and we had the writing off of VAT and income taxes for some years, right? Then when COVID hit, we had additional stimulus packages, which involved the rollout of about 5 or 6 brand new hotel developments set to come. We had the building of specific uh, targeted institutions. We had the repair, like the accident emergency. We had some capital works done on like the roads and some other cosmetic uh, changes really to Barbados. But in all of these stimulus packages and all of these spending, we can't quite seem to have development, and we can't quite seem to have growth because, as Melissa rightfully said, look at the whole project, look at the sewage out project on the outfall as well. We have Comey, you have 5 million at Oystins. Um, Even if we look at the medicinal marijuana industry, not a blade of marijuana has been produced, right? But you have constant levels of expenditure going out,
Hmm.
right? So how do you gain that discipline, that fiscal discipline, which strikes the balance between growth and opportunity for growth and spending, but still having the idea that you have to be tight in areas and to basically run more balanced budgets as opposed to these wide deficits that we uh, have or had or used to have or still have, whatever.
Well, you said a lot there that really does into the realm of public finance and the management of public finance. And you can ask that question to 50 people and you probably get 51 answers. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, what we must strive towards in Barbados is earning our way in life, creating the right kind of environment that allows for entrepreneurship to flourish, that allows for foreign investors to come in and invest with perhaps without significant concessions on government. I'm not seeing enough of that. As I said earlier, it may relate to the issue of confidence. I don't know on the domestic and the international arena. I think we Barbados is going to be in for a bit more of a challenging time, particularly if the war in the Middle East escalates, if it doesn't get under control. We've been fortunate to have had relatively low oil prices in recent times, but as that war escalates, we could very well find that we may be forced to pay more for goods and services. You may find that there's a dip in our tourist arrivals or the spend of our tourists. And these are all exogenous factors. But the endogenous things, the things that we have under control, we must more focus on. Take, for example, service levels. Personally, I find that the level of service in Barbados seems to be a race to the bottom. And this is where I talk about private sector being more entrepreneurship and private oriented. You guys need to provide a better level of customer service across the board. You know, when I listen to the programs on radio every day and talk to people around the place, why are we settling for mediocrity all the time from various government departments and various private sector entities? Is it that we don't have a choice? Or is it that we prefer to suffer in silence? And to me, this is a low hanging fruit that we have to address. We look at what's happening around the country today, and this may be segue into another issue like the crime and violence. This is a serious matter. This is not a BLP DLP issue, you know. This is a serious matter that if it is not wrestled to the ground, it would affect not just our international business sector, but our domestic business sector as well. When people have a fear of going out at night, that's going to affect bars and restaurants. You know, I go to a lot of rum shops around the place because I like liming in rum shops, but I'm a lot more cautious of where I go and where I sit and how long I stay. And these realities we have to face. They're not small issues to scoff at. So we can look at the bigger issues in terms of fiscal policy and taxation levels, etc. But there's some real home business that we have to address in this country.
Ramon, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I just obviously want to rephrase my comments earlier. Yes, the younger people they take more risks now than before, right? Let me just say that there is this serious fear of having to go through all the red tape and so forth to just get the business registered, right? I know there are some regulatory compliance you have to take care of, but we must find that intricate balance between, you know, making sure that you're compliant and allowing businesses, new businesses, small businesses, and encouraging them to obviously get registered and get that business going, right? So I just want to say that.
Yeah, and I agree with you there, Ramon. And then we need to ask ourselves, why should people have a fair business, a register in a business? Is it just the bureaucracy involved? Or is it that once you register a business, you then come under the purview of various government departments? So going to be peeping at you, hounding you down, asking you to do more and more filings, more and more payments. And then guys will say, you know what, let me just fly under the radar and not put up with that level of crap. Well, it's not crap really, but you know what I mean. Level of frustration there. And it comes down then to the fundamental question, which relates to both domestic and international business. We have to do better at business facilitation in Barbados. We have to make it easier for Barbadians to be able to do business. And if we do it for ourselves well as local people, others are going to be attracted to this jurisdiction. You know, but it's not happening. And I hope that we can get this going shortly.
Yeah. Um, Melissa, you.
Yes.
Sorry, Ramon. Go ahead. You were
Yeah,
wrapping up.
sorry. Do you think there needs to be more education where registering businesses and going about, you know, these things in terms of being compliant and so forth? You think there should be more seminars? There should be more activity, educational ways. That's the question I'm asking.
My answer to you would be yes. But at the same time, people don't want a lot of long talk, you know. They want reaction. You don't need a seminar to tell you how to register a business or whatnot. I think at one level, we need more entrepreneurship to be taught in our schools at all levels. I believe that is severely missing in Barbados. And teaching kids in primary schools about the fundamentals of business, or in secondary schools about fundamentals of entrepreneurship, it helps the overall society. Not everybody will go into business. Maybe less than 10% of the population will find themselves actually owning or running their own business. But once people from a very young age understand what's involved in business development, and running a business, they actually become better employees, better contributors to society. Instead, we don't do enough of that. And then we wait to the tail end when they start working and start telling them about doing business, about having a seminar or conference on how to register a business or how to maneuver a new portal in a government department or whatever. We need to get back to basics. We need to start working at a foundation level to pull ourselves up along the way.
Hmm. Very interesting perspective. Um, but could that be related to the overall experience in terms of customer service in the public sector of Barbados? Could we speak about the work attitudes and how people see work in a modern era? There are new policies being rolled out for the way people engage with work in this day and age. There are
Mhm.
persons now on the 4-day work week. There are misery indexes to be able to gauge how miserable the people are at work, right? So could you say anything about the evolving nature of government and government work?
But I don't know that it's totally dissimilar to evolving situations in the private sector as well. Let me say up front, though, that government has an important role to play in national development. Let me disabuse anybody mind of anything to the contrary. So we need civil servants, we need public officers, we need government departments to do the things that they're doing. I think the constant cry is for them to be more efficient, to be more customer friendly. I don't think that we've yet evolved into measuring what people do, particularly in the public sector. I think in many respects, whilst the trade union movement have been good at getting better working conditions for public officers, and I really commend them on that. They've not been very good at encouraging greater efficiency in the public sector. We're not getting value for money in many of the public sector departments. And this is what is frustrating a lot of people. But it comes back then to another fundamental issue vis-a-vis the public sector. I think we are in Barbados and certainly public sector, we are too focused on personnel management and do not place enough emphasis on human resource development or human resource management. And I think that there's a distinction in there. It's not just about clocking in the hours you work and giving you a pay and deducting NIS and PAYE, etc. It is how do we take you as a young officer and groom you, help you to shape your vision within this department or within the wider public sector for growth and development. We must continue to look at rewards and we must look at the punishment system as well. If people don't produce, then there's a penalty for it. But we bury our heads in the sand, and then the unions keep a little noise, and politicians cower and get frightened, and then they give in because elections is coming up and you don't want to offend anybody. But in not offending some people, you are really offending the country and hampering development in the country. So I hope that we can really not just talk, but really do meaningful things to restructure our public sector and to get a way of better measuring deliverables and certainly to be able to implement a lot we have. And I know, Kemar, you've touched on this point before, and I stress it here. We have a serious implementation deficit disorder in this country. And as you know, as a result, millions of dollars that we borrow for projects are not drawn down or we pay a heavy price because they're not utilized as they should be. And I think the government needs to come clean with the country and tell them exactly what the score is, because these things are costing money. We're not having that conversation as far as I'm concerned, that level of transparency on these matters.
Hmm. Agreed, agreed. Melissa, you want to make a comment here?
Just about the public sector. You spoke about the customer service. But my question is, how often do we do seminars training public servants in customer service.
Mhm.
But I don't know. You know, as a politician, you hardly get involved in the administration of the public sector. That is for the public officers to do. But I think we've made some strides. I think I've seen more and more times there have been restructuring of the various departments. Certainly, the personnel department is now been renamed. We've got director generals of the department. I think some training is taking place, but it may be being done in a very robotic manner that doesn't fit in with an overall picture. Somebody must be seeing things from a 5,000-foot level. So that, for example, those government departments that interact with entrepreneurs and private sector, they must understand what we do, why we do what we do. They must understand what it takes to run a business. So when I go to a government department to do a transaction, understand that I should not take 3 and 4 days. Yesterday, I went down whole town to a government department to pay some money. And when I walked through the door, I saw every chair was taken up. A few people milling outside. In my mind, I said, I'm going to have to spend at least 2 to 3 hours here. I left, and it was something that could not be done online. I didn't want to do it online for whatever reason. That should not be happening in 2024 in Barbados. Of course, I went to another department in the afternoon, a similar department. I went up to Oistins, and I was able to get through in 15 minutes. So it tells me that that government department is not measuring the throughput or the flow of customers, so that you ask yourself, can you deploy more resources to Horton, because it's a big catchment area, a lot of people are going there, and less resources perhaps to Oistins. Or ask, what is Oistins doing better that Horton can't do? These are things that frustrate people. So when you work in the private sector and you have to interact with a government department, and you find that staff there are very rude to you, you go there at 11:30, do business, and somebody say, oh, we're all going to lunch at 5 o'clock. Come back at 1. And you go back at 5 minutes to 1, and then at 1:45, they're now strolling back into work. These are not things that we must accept in modern Barbados. And it affects not just the domestic sector, but international investors look at these things as well. And they say, well, why should I do this when I can go to Ireland, for example, where some of our international business companies are shifting to? I say, well, you can pay a good tax rate here. We're part of the EU system and the OECD tax compliance regime, and we get good customer service. So I think that we have a long way to go, and we know what has to be done. But I don't think there's a willingness on the part of many to do what has to be done.
Okay, understood.
Ramon, you wanna comment?
I had some horror stories regards to service in the public sector as well, and in the private, I must say. But in terms of the public sector, I know some of the selections for the political position can be very dubious. The process can be very dubious. Let me just say that, right? And some of these candidates, some of these employees, they say, you know what, I'll move from here. Nobody can move from here. So I am gonna do as I like. I went in the establishment at 9 o'clock, and a young lady came in, and she went to break at 9:15, and the person who was supposed to be her supervisor or whoever he was, that he asked her where she's going. He said, I gained break. He said, will you just come in here? And there were plethora of people in that particular night, and there was only one poor young lady. She was there, so she had to fight with all these other people, So some people believe that they're like statues in a position, right? And I think the human resource department, there must be better measures in place, a better selection process. What's going into a public position. I know that the private sector, there's a lot of vetting. I've just heard stories about the public sector, but I think human resource, and you mentioned punishment and being reprimanded and so forth. that
Well,
I don't know if there's
before
a
you say anything worse, Rahman, let me say you're going to say that a lot of these people who get jobs in public sector get them through politicians. And I won't say I don't know the quantity of it, but I'll tell you this much. I was a politician for 10 years, an MP for 10 years. And yes, I did help get many of my constituents, family and friends into jobs in the public sector, both central government and statutory entities. But I always took a position. If I help you get a job and I help you keep it. So if you go into that job and you play the tail and you are suspended or you're fired, don't come back to me again. I've done my part. But the bigger issue is you're calling for greater transparency in the administration, in the public sector. And I think we have systems in place, but for some reason, they may not always be working. You have some majority of public sector workers, let me say, are good. They try to do a good day's job for the pay they get. But sometimes it's the system and environment within which they have to work. Sometimes it is bad supervision and bad management. I don't blame the civil servant. You actually have some bad managers and some bad supervisors in the system who linger there because of longevity, the amount of years they put there. And then you find it difficult to move them. I tell you this much, one of the most difficult things to do in the public sector is to discipline anyone. And therefore, some people just throw their hands in the air. Now, we have to have these, not just conversations, but we have to find practical solutions to this because an inefficient public sector can drag an economy down. We talk about wanting to be in the 21st century and doing things that we did in the 19th century. It can't work. You give every government department, every unit, computers and the IT infrastructure and architecture that they need. But then it's like giving them a paper weight because nobody is using the system as they like. And this has don't have no fear of what happened with Brian, the hacking that took place. That was a bit embarrassing. I don't know the true story of it, but it concerns me immensely as it should concern all right-thinking Barbadians. But that should not stop us from making greater use of technology across the board. That speaks to cybersecurity and whatnot. And by the way, you see the government has trained about 130 people in cybersecurity. I hope that they're being deployed because it shouldn't train somebody in cybersecurity and then go and tell them to become a clerical officer in the fisheries division to shuffle paper about the place. Horses or courses. So going back to your point, Ramon, it has to be about training, recruitment, training, supervision, and management.
So I want to ask an alternative view here. No, you spoke about the labor component to the Ministry of Public Service. But being a public servant, one of the pinnacles of being a public servant is job security and being appointed to government. Now, how does a political organization that could either be an opposition, that could either be a government, see it to a population that, you know, the reasons you articulated are fine. We need to have efficiency, we need to improve, we need to upgrade, we need to uplift the standard, all of those things. But the political decision now to say, well, hey, look, to achieve all of these things, we have to come up with a solution to fix them. And part of that solution is to say that we are not taking away job security, but we have to restructure or reanalyze the way how it's distributed to be able to better have these so-called efficiencies in the system. How do you have that balance between what needs to be done and the needs of the population?
But I don't think job security in the public or private sector should in any way take away from efficiencies therein. But of course, once an individual, we all want human beings, and when we go to work, we all want the security of tenure. It allows us to plan our lives better. It allows us to get a mortgage, to get a car loan, to raise our kids, whatever it is. So we don't fool ourselves. Everybody wants a level of job security. Um, in the public sector, job security does not mean that you should then start to become inefficient. I think it actually can help. It should be. We should be able to help boost productivity in the public sector once more people are appointed. But we're not seeing that. I know successive governments have come and they've appointed thousands and thousands of public sector workers. But the correlation that and improved productivity is not there for the naked eye to see. So it means that there are other things that have to be looked at besides job security, to address the challenges that we're facing. Increased use of technology. And let me say once again that based on what has happened here yesterday, I gather in recent times, government must pay more attention to and invest more in data protection. Because when these things happen, citizens start to lose confidence in government. And you see, going back to the conversation a few months ago over the national ID cards and why Barbadians felt concerned. I went and got mine, they didn't have that fear. But now some people may say, see, I was right not to do it. But certainly, investment in technology is critical. Continuous investing in training and development, but the right kind of training that leads to positive development in the public sector is critical. Not just training because you have a training budget and you want to send a couple of people off overseas or to Sherman or somewhere for a day and a couple of hours. Don't these things is they must go and must be practical. We talked earlier about job security and such like. But job security does not mean you must have a high level of indiscipline. And I go back to a point I made earlier, which is that we still do not have that level of discipline and accountability in civil service, generally speaking, across the board in Barbados. As a result, people get away with what they want to get away with. And these things cost taxpayers money at the end of the day. But I know time is coming up, and I just simply say that despite it all, we are still a very blessed island, but we cannot be complacent.
Hey, thank you very much. Ramon, Melissa, you guys have anything to say on the public service, job security, efficiency, any of the like?
I think when it comes to efficiency and productivity, I believe it comes down to personal responsibility. If you take pride in what you do and what's not, you will show up for work, you will do what you have to do, etc. But if you really don't care, you will play the fool. So it comes down to personal responsibility. As an adult, I don't think anybody should be telling you what you need to do and what's not at work. So if you know you're employed to do something, just show up and do it.
Ramon, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, initially I carried out some constructive criticism there regarding an establishment in public sector, right? I also had honestly an extremely good experience with well, I would call it very good experience based on the horror stories you hear other ways, right? There was one particular establishment, and I inquired about some information, and believe it or not, it went on. Yes, it went on for about a month. Yes, but in terms of the following up, and me getting a call back, sometimes a lot of times that is what the particular client and customer wants. Just that call back, just that they just want to know, something is happening here, something is happening, and we kept in the loop, So I found that was really admirable. But imagine something so simple, seems to be some of the greatest thing because of the horror stories, how horrible the stories are previously with the other situations, So again, the levels of customer service and so forth, we got to continue to up our game. I don't know. I know that in terms of the private sector, that there are some performance appraisals done and so forth. I'm not too sure, and I want somebody, if possible, that can chime in whether that is done to measure performance in the public sector as well too. That's the question I'm asking.
Yes, I think if I can, Kimar, respond to that. I know over the years there's been development, I think it's called PRDS. There's a performance appraisal system in the public sector where each public officer is to be assessed by their supervisor based on certain criteria. Um, and then that information is fed into a system that allows for that individual to be not just evaluated, but any weaknesses to be improved on, any good things to be commended. It affects the way you're promoted or transferred within the public sector. So some of that exists there. Um, but I want to step aside a bit though from the public sector. Not sure how much more time you have, Kimar. I know we said I will go to
Yeah,
9 o'clock.
yeah. We
And
usually
it's
cut off at 9:30. So
all right, I will try not to be too long. I mean, I'm gonna miss some karaoke tonight, or dominoes, but that's okay, all for a good cause. But I want to link this back to the international business, which I think is the area that we want to talk to initially, and it comes back to ensuring that Barbados punches above its weight, to use a cliche that's been around for a little while. We have to be efficient at all levels, both in all institutions, public and private sector. So as much as we in the last couple of minutes may have been constructively critical of the public sector, let me say the private sector too has to do better. Um, and we have to benchmark ourselves against those countries and those places that are international in focus, meaning that they're attracting jurisdiction, other companies here. So, for example, you look at the international business sector today. I would like to know how much of our corporate tax revenue comes from that sector. I know it used to be 64% at least. But we want to attract more international businesses to Barbados through whatever structures are used. We have to look at where they are now, where they're going. So even though the Prime Minister increased the tax to 9%, which in some instances is a disincentive to international investors, we have to look at where they are going and what else can we do here besides tinker with our tax system to attract and retain these entities. We have a lot of young, bright boys and girls coming out of high school, community college, UW, etc., that are not getting the level of employment in the fields that they want to. And I think the international business sector, flowing both ways, is one way of doing that. But we don't want entities that are going to come in here and say, well, we want to get heavily involved in artificial intelligence, and then find that the CEO of that company is frustrated in trying to get a driver's license in Barbados. Or he goes to a commercial bank to open a bank account, and he finds that he can't do that because of the amount of paperwork that they are asking for these days in order to be compliant. Whereas the jurisdiction he's coming from is a lot easier to do it. So these are real issues. If you have attorneys that are slow and tardy in getting back to clients, both domestic and international, that affects business around here. And then word gets out there. The international business sector is still a relatively small sector, and word will get out there, and then we find we are not attracting and retaining the level of businesses that we want to our shores. So I really hope that going forward, that the government and the others players involved in the industry can get back to the drawing table, redefine the international business sector, seriously look at where our markets are, and aggressively and relentlessly go after them. The United States of America, the OECD, and these guys will continue to move the goalposts. And but we can't roll our sleeves, we can't throw our hands in here and give up. We have to roll up our sleeves and do more to attract these kind of entities to Barbados. And I hope that the government is soon going to be able to come to the country and say this is what we're doing to develop the international business sector, to sustain it, and to effectively manage it, measure it as well.
huh. Well, interesting. But before you go, I just wanted to ask you about the connectivity here now. Um, one of the largest planks of having a successful international business sector is your digital footprint. And you spoke a lot about tonight the hacking at BRA and the hacking not just at BRA but to the whole public sector. And Barbados, particularly the Prime Minister, was speaking a lot about going digital and transforming our economy and our public services to be a fully and digital cashless society by 2030. No, you've just been hacked, basically. So when you travel, as you would know, there's a lot of card transactions, a lot of swiping, a lot of more digital. Let's cash.
Mhm.
So how far is Barbados and the Caribbean behind as it relates to digitization and digital security as well?
I think we're a bit behind, but that may be due to cultural differences. If you were raised in a North American society, it became almost a norm 20 years ago to talk about being cashless. In Barbados, we're still playing catch up. But the technology is such that it should really allow us to leapfrog and to really move forward aggressively with it. But when things like hacking takes place, it creates a level of uncertainty. And it's not just the area. Banks in Barbados have been hacked. Individual accounts have been hacked. I hear about these things almost every day. Um, is it impossible? No. As long as the technology is there, these things will happen. You can have a good firewall and good cybersecurity systems, etc., and some hacking will still take place. But businesses in Barbados, both public sector and private sector, have to be to stay ahead of the curve, have to be eternally vigilant. You cannot drop your guard when it comes to cybersecurity. And I know that based on the public outcry over what happened in the BRA, people are going to go into panic mode and they're going to spend some money now and look at cybersecurity. But then come Christmas time when it eases up, then you pull back on the investment and the watchdogs you have, and then you're back to square one. So, but in a small society like us, a hacking of a major department is a significant thing. It actually borders on national security threats. If this happened in the United States of America, I don't know that people will back too much of a eyelid because of the diversity and size of it. But a small place like Barbados, we have to continually be cognizant and vigilant as to what's happening.
Mm. All right. Well, thank you very much. We've come up to the end of our segment, so I just want to ask Omar or Melissa quickly if they have any parting comments for you before you go.
He seems to be gone.
Oh, yeah, he's still there. You could
All right.
go ahead.
Just one question. Any advice that you would give to any young politicians?
Roll up your sleeves and do some hard work. Don't be afraid of the body blows you will get. Once you believe in your the philosophy of your party of choice, believe in what your party is offering, get out there and engage people. And if you don't like people, if you don't like interacting with people, then politics is not for you. I don't care how many degrees you have from university or wherever. Fundamentally, you must be able to enjoy interacting with people. You must have a broad back or broad shoulders because most of the people that talk about you will say bad things about you. You must be able to rise above that, take a deep breath, and stay focused. I think that is basically the little bit of advice that I would offer.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Come on.
Yeah, I know there must be a lot of points and so forth, and time
Ramon
is
watching
way.
TV.
You could hear me? Hello?
Oh, he's muted.
I
No,
can
I'm not
hear.
muted. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Can Donville
Well,
hear me?
maybe I can have a quick final word here, and that is a thank.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you hear Ramon?
Pardon me? Yes, I can hear you. You can
Okay,
hear me?
okay. Yes, I
Okay.
can hear you. But
Okay.
I have to go now, but I want to thank
Yeah.
Melissa, Ramon, and Sir Yuki Mar for affording me the opportunity to join with your team here. Good night
Yeah.
to all of those who are following you on YouTube and whatever social media platforms you're using. I thoroughly enjoy the engagement. And let me say that I intend to continue to lend my voice to issues that I may think of national importance. I don't pretend to have all the answers, nor am I going to be so cocky as to get involved in everything. But I certainly believe that persons like myself who have been through quite a bit, I can still stand strong, must lend a voice to national development and do so without fear or favor. So I want to thank you, Kimar, and your team for the opportunity and to wish you a very pleasant good night and a safe and enjoyable rest of the year as well. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Very good to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you.
Yes. 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 So there you have it, Mr. Donville Inniss. You're our former Minister of International Business and Commerce, right here on Alternate Views. So we are keeping it going uh, week by week by week. Ramon, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with Donville tonight. Melissa, I enjoyed the conversation with Donville. You guys were excellent as usual in asking the questions and representing your alternative views. In the last 15 minutes, we could do a recap on the, what we discussed on the show, and we could also introduce any additional points that we want to discuss among ourselves. For the last 15 minutes of the program. So we have Sheepdog online. Sheepdog made it all the way from Ireland. Judy Jokes. It's me, Pedro Gemma. Square 4. We have Jay Miles, Mark Clark, Peter King, Joseph Cadogan, Sean Cool, Pedro Gemma, Mr. Angel, Sensi King Herbalist, Marion Griffith. I saw Nigel earlier. Nigel wasn't able to make it on tonight, but good night to you, Nigel. And all of the loyal patron supporters to Alternative Views. Good night to you. So, Ramon, you were saying something earlier, but mix up a communique or whatever. But over to you, sir.
I was just saying that there was so much a simple thing like ID cards. There was so many postponements where that's concerned. So imagine now us turning totally digital. I think that I don't want to be a pessimist, but the rate we're going, 2030 might be a little too optimistic. I know overseas, even the man with the hot dog cart, he, you can tap and so forth. There's no cash involved. So, we got to continue along the lines of trying to, if we're looking to head in that direction, first, we got to look at protecting ourselves if we decide to be digital, because, all your eggs in one basket, and all your money gone once. You're hacked, right? Because everything is digital. No more physical cash. So we got to look to find ways to protect against that. And if we're looking to move forward in that direction, then we got to do so in in a quicker, more efficient way, right? So that's what you have to say. Where that is concerned, the digital realm is concerned, the digital way of doing things. Right?
But you don't think that for a country that has signed on to the metaverse, the first country in the world to sign on to the metaverse,
And have an
doing
embassy.
have an
Mm-hmm.
embassy, I'm buying digital land, I'm buying digital property, upstairs and downstairs digital house, um, digital IDs, all information stored on this one card, health information, driver's license information, banker's information, educational, everything about you on a card in Barbados that has been hacked. And this is not the first time Barbados was hacked, by the way. Right? Barbados is constantly being hacked. When we had the
Hospital.
jabs, yeah, COVID, when we had COVID, we were hacked constantly. Even the police got hacked. Right? So it shows you that Barbados is clearly, like clearly not on a positive trajectory as it relates to this digital thrust, neither on the right trajectory as it relates to digital security. Because you guys remember the entire voters list, people personal information was posted online just randomly. Like I know you have all of Barbadians information, tax information, transactions, tax collection information is available online on the dark web, right? And we are going towards Africa, right? The place known in some instances for scamming and digital scamming. And I don't know if you guys have ever been the recipients of one of those emails saying, "Hey, I'm from Botswana and my father owns a cement factory, and if you could just send me $1,000 to get over by this place, I will then release X amount of money to you." I don't know if you guys ever received one of those emails or texts or school to try to scam you, but it is a serious reality. And Barbados heading lock, stock, and barrel down that road without any type of protective gear for its people or the assets that we have. So you were saying something, Melissa.
Um, I was just saying, basically, I think that we do things backward majority of the times. If you're looking to go digital, wouldn't your first step be to have a secure digital platform before you put any information on it? I believe that your cybersecurity should have been your number one priority before you do anything else. So I think that's where we went wrong. And hopefully going in the future we will learn to do things the right way.
Hmm. Fair enough. Fair enough. Any comment, Ramon?
Yeah, well, I actually knew a gentleman, he received an email and so forth. And the email also, the content of the email was this nice looking young lady, and she talked about being some type of princess or something like that. And two tools, he clicked on it. She was very easy on the eyes. He clicked on it, and there went all of his tools to work, you know, digital tools to work. And he had to obviously get it sorted out, etc., etc. But these are the threats that we see a lot, right? A lot. And you're correct. Not the first time Barbados was hacked. So we got to make sure that security is extremely important. We got to make sure that's the first point. That's the first course of action. Security of these things before we go ahead and look to go all digital, because we can be in some serious trouble if we go all digital and we lose everything. Right? We can be some serious trouble. So, I think we had they say the cart before the horse. That's what I said. Yeah, the cart before the horse. So what adage?
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole adage. Yeah, but in certain cases, Barbadians would say donkey, because I think a lot of times people use the donkey as a mode of transportation. So, but we got to make sure that we go through the proper steps in securing our digital move for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have Miss Maxine McLean say, if you are so gullible or greedy to respond to such offers, you deserve to be conned. But we must not be conned because of weak security systems. As somebody else is saying, sir, if you right, Ramon, you stupid. Okay.
They
Uh,
might, yeah.
so that's very interesting though.
Uh,
But nevertheless though, we do acknowledge that Uh, these type of things are indeed happening. We know that credit card fraud and online fraud is very big in even right here in Jamaica. Online scamming and lottery fraud is very big. There's not a huge instance of that level of crime going on in Barbados. Notice they say huge level, but there is some. Um, so I wouldn't necessarily have that concern from the criminal element, and that Barbados would have rogue persons operating in the space. We usually get this from over and abroad, but I received a WhatsApp to my phone recently, and I kind of agreed with it because I made this argument uh, to some colleagues, and this argument is that recently the Barbados Prime Minister would have addressed at the United Nations, and she would have subliminally dissed, uh, you know, as a Caribbean where everybody know what a diss is, but she would have basically disrespected or attempt to throw shade or compete, can be combative, whatever, with the Israeli Prime Minister, right? Now, Israel, if you know a lot about Israel, we could discuss Israel from a biblical and Christian perspective, or we could discuss Israel from a country perspective as a country that has war capacity and serious military capacity. So, Ramon and Melissa, Israel has one of the highest levels of technology as it relates to defense systems, as it relates to computer systems. Israel trains majority of the forces around the world as it relates to cyber,
Really?
right? Israel being one of the as I say, I call her one of the warmongers, right? But one of the more warmongers of the world is heavily stocked and armed. And as a small country, and I saw somebody mention it in the comments, as a small country, you get yourself involved with geopolitics at that level, no resources, you have no war capacity, no nuclear capacity. Uh, the GDP of Barbados, I'm sure Israel could pay that off in the blink of an eye. And here you have a country the size of a dot get at the United Nations, and there's this whole internet sensation. Now, obviously, I see some level of retaliation happening on the international level against Barbados. And I've also seen that there are many other bigger countries in the world who would never ever risk what the Barbados Prime Minister risks, right? And for a country that is so heavily dependent on the US, and the US is Israel, Israel is the US, as Sheepdog is saying, he says that he saw that she was diplomatically naive to say the least. And I'm sure Miss Maxine McLean would say that there are certain things that you do, and there are certain things that you don't do, especially as a small country, 166 square miles, that if Israel decides to get angry and send on the whole Mossad, who are we going to send out? The Barbados Defense Force, right? Who are we going to send out? Wilfred Abrams, a laptop, trying to be a hacker. That's our line of defense, right? So I foresee on the geopolitical level, Oman, the steps that a country makes on that international level has serious impacts and repercussions on the domestic level if it does not have the adequate defense systems in place to defend itself, much like a bully, a big bully, and a small child who's unable to defend itself. You will get your candy taken away from you, unfortunately. Yes, so some thoughts on you guys.
Well, I wasn't aware of the dialogue that took place. But as you said, sometimes it's best to keep your mouth shut. on certain stages. What was it exactly that she said?
Vengeance is mine, said the Lord.
Oh,
Not
really?
any country, and you can't use the Bible conveniently, for your purposes or whatever, whatever. Um, right. Somebody said that I don't talk about it. I was not talking about it, but Israel just, you know, speaking and paraphrasing and explaining. But back to you, Melissa.
Yeah, those are some serious, serious, serious words that were spoken by her. If that's what she said. So what what does she expect? I mean,
Mm.
if they're the persons that are training others in cybersecurity, then our hack should have been expected, I guess.
Uh,
And I believe we're probably going to have many more if that's the case.
mm. Well, as you know, we are not that difficult to, but in the international diplomatic world, right? I raised a point on the Marseille show as it relates to geopolitics, and I could run a bet here on alternative views, depending on who wins the American election.
Hmm.
It depends on who wins the American election. That would tell me the direction that Barbadian and Caribbean politics will swing, right? When Donald Trump was in office last time and Donald Trump came to the Caribbean with his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, and Mike Pompeo invited Caribbean leaders to meet with Trump. You remember Barbados Prime Minister snubbed the US and said that she was not going, she was not invited, by the way, but she still blocked
Hmm.
up alarm that she was not going, and she was not attending, and she encouraged some other Caribbean leaders not to attend this meeting as well, right? Now, all of the Caribbean leaders who attended the meeting with Pompeo and Trump, when Trump lost office, all of those Caribbean leaders lost office as well,
Okay.
right? So you're seeing the different geopolitical connections. So if Trump's supporters, with the exception of Jamaica's prime minister, lost office, and when the Democrats came in, new governments to the Caribbean came in. I'm supposing that if the Republicans get back in America,
Especially in
then
the Caribbean.
the Caribbean will most likely see change of governments, including Barbados, right? Including Barbados. And
Hmm.
remember that as soon as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won their election, that the Barbados Prime Minister was in America in pictures, hugging up and kissing up with Kamala and Biden and talking about the job. And, they were big, big friends, but that was not the case so with Trump. Right, Ramon?
Yeah, yeah. I saw the trend in terms of obviously speaking in that forum. I won't stay far away from from that particular topic because, and I think that the person who would have spoken that time as well too at that particular time should have stayed far away from it as well too, because it doesn't take much to hack our systems in Barbados. I believe that there was a person in a little basement with some spectacles on, with a small little system that hack our systems, right? I believe so. So it does not take much. So you have to be cognizant of the stage, where you are, what type of people are surrounding you, and you gotta move accordingly. So, right? So let me just say that.
Yes. Um, any word from you, Melissa? We are at 9:30, so this is the final word for the night.
Oh, final word. To be honest with you, this is the first time I've actually done any research whatsoever in international business. So it was a very educational, very informative session today. I learned a lot. Um, I was, a bit of a shock to see some of the information that I read through in terms of the tax credits and what's not. Some things that we didn't discuss tonight, but every day is a learning experience, and I am grateful to be on the show because you get to learn something new every week. So happy to be here again this week.
Thank you for coming on. Ramon, uh, over to you, sir.
Yeah, boy. I did some research here as well too. And let me tell you, it was definitely outside my box. Ain't no doubt about it, right? And it was my absolute pleasure, obviously, hearing Mr. Inniss and having this conversation with my co-host, and co-host this, right? I tell you, the level of research I would have done in the last couple of days, I believe, surpasses a lot other occasions, right? So you did learn a lot, and it was a conversation, man. It was a conversation, and enjoy the viewers, the comments as per usual. At some point in time, we to a certain extent we went off topic, but it was still interconnected, and we were able to hold a very intellectual and a very educational conversation. And they really appreciated that. There's no doubt. Right?
Hey, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, resident. I could call both of you resident co-hosts now. I had a very excellent discussion with you. I like the way you guys angle your questions. It's totally different from mine, and I really respect the way you articulate yourselves and you ask these questions. It gives the conversation more girth, and it allows the guest and the presenter to, you know, we pull at him from different directions, so he's able to articulate himself that we get a much broader set of explanations um, to the issues. So I enjoyed discussing a lot of the information with Donville tonight. I certainly learned a lot as well too. You know, um, while I'm out here, I learn a lot as well too. Don't mind people feel that I know more than the average, but a lot of the time I too am learning along the way, and I like to learn from you, Ramon. I like to learn from you, Melissa, because you guys have skill sets and a way of seeing the issues that, and I see it and another issue. So just hoping that there's that exchange of information and learning techniques between us as panelists, and also whenever we do bring on the guests, we learn from the guests, and that the guest also learns from us, because it's a circular process. Our learning is a circular process, right? When we were growing up, it's usually the teacher standing up at the front teaching us, but no, it's more of all of us sitting in a circle, learning collectively from one another and building the required camaraderie along the way. So thank you guys. Thank you alternate viewers for tuning on this week. We had another excellent discussion with Mr. Donville Inniss, the former Minister of Commerce and International Business. We were able to start the program with a quote from Alternative Views, which included Donville Inniss's name. So we would have written about Donville Inniss, so that proves that he's a superstar because he made it in the book, and we were able to write about him. Um, and persons like him who would have created history along the way and whatever, whatever. Um, we want to thank him personally. He says that Alternative Views was his first podcast interview. So we are here are very proud to be able to host Malik Donville Inniss for his first Alternative Views, uh, in his first podcast. And we wish to welcome him back on future endeavors, right? Uh, an endeavor where Ramon might be the main host, or Melissa might be the main host, and I'm just a guest there, you know, looking, or I'm just there looking on and learning as well. So we hope to have him back next week. We're going to have another excellent show. You're going to learn who our next guest is along the way. We usually put up the advert before time. So you're going to see that this weekend is the water drive happening for the residents of St. Lucie. So I want to encourage you all to uh, donate to some water to the young Democrats in aiding the people of St. Lucie to get water. They're going to go on Saturday. So you could take all water donations down to the George Street Auditorium between now and Saturday uh, to have the people of St. Lucie assisted in their time of need. The Marcia Weeks show is tomorrow at 7 p.m. Don't forget to tune in to Marcia Weeks. So a big shout out to Marcia Weeks, Caswell Franklin, Dave Weeks, Pastor Ferdinand, Maxine McLean, Glenn Murray, and all of the other hosts on the Marcia Weeks show, and all of the viewers as well on the Marcia Weeks program. Big shout outs to you. I'll be there on Monday as usual. Nevertheless, I want to say goodbye to you all on the program. Had another very good talk tonight, so shout outs to you all. I'm seeing a couple of new names. Julian Grant saying that she would like to hear Lynette Eastman as a former Minister of Commerce and International Business on the show. That is fine with us. We had a show with Lynette on it previously when my show was called The Debrief uh, Show. But since then we've rebranded and we have alternate views. So we could bring Miss Eastman on again because we love to have her on here. So we're going to be able to get that. So thanks for the suggestion. So a big shout outs to everybody once more. Joseph, Clayton, Peter, it's me, Calvin, Sir Alfred Benjamin. Shout out to Ralph and Margaret. Shout out to everybody from the parish of St. John, the city of Bridgetown, St. George, St. Lucie, St. Michael, Northwest, St. Philip, everywhere in Barbados, Barbados all over the Caribbean, Barbados all over the world. Shout out to my boy Sheepdog all the way in Ireland. He came on. I know the time frame is very wide, so we thank him for staying up so late to be on the program. Big respects to you, Sheepdog, and all of my Irish brothers and sisters who come on. Marion Griffith, thank you very much for tuning on. It's me saying it's not goodbye, it's good night. So good night, guys. Melissa, Ramon, and good night to all the alternate viewers. See you next week.